My name is Emma Donnelly with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and I'm speaking virtually with Daniel Fischer on November 11th, 2020. Thank you for talking with me today.
You're welcome.
For the recording, would you please again introduce yourself, Concord Coffee, and your role there?
Yeah, so again, I'm Daniel Fischer. I am the house manager at Concord Coffee in Gainesville, and that was it, right?
Yeah, that was it. And how would you characterize Concord Coffee for someone who hasn't been there?
For someone who hasn't been to the shop before, we are a specialty coffee shop. What that means is that we are part of this, what's called the third wave of coffee and all of that. I'm sure you learned some about this in your course and all of that. So first wave, Folgers, Maxwell House, second wave, Starbucks, third wave, specialty. And so specialty, we focused on quality of the coffee, treating everyone well from start to finish, things like that. And so Concord both tries to serve high quality coffee and pair it with high quality ingredients. So we source our teas, our milks, everything from people who hold their ingredients to the same high standard that we do. So that is one of the reasons that it might be a little bit pricier than your average shop, but at the same time, it's really not, because a cup of coffee still only costs you $2.50. So it's like, so specialty shop, we serve anything from pour overs and classic drip to lattes, hot or iced. We also have teas. We just expanded our tea selection. We have 9 now, so that's been fun. We serve some food too. The pandemic has affected our food options though, so we only serve our more quick food options, if that makes sense, our less involved ones. We used to serve like avocado toast and all this more involved stuff, but we've slimmed down for the pandemic. I think that was the question, right? I kind of kept going, but
Yeah, that was great. So I'm asking everyone this question about your personal experience with coffee. So what's your earliest memory of coffee or of drinking it?
So I'm actually half Cuban. I know I look the part. I look like my very white father. So I actually grew up with Cuban coffee in the house. And I don't remember the earliest age I had it, but it was probably younger than it should have been. Probably around 5 or 6 is what I would guess. My father always made a large amount in the morning. He would drink most of that, but my mom might have some, or he might save it for later. So I very much grew up with Cuban coffee in the house, but not so much American coffee. So that's what I started on. And so that was like my first cup is Cuban espresso, pretty much, or Cuban, the stovetop percolator is what I started on.
How did you first get involved in the coffee business?
So Concord's actually my first job in the coffee business. I started here as a barista when the shop opened last September in 2019. And I was promoted to manager internally in June. After the coffee shop reopened, our previous manager left to go pursue opportunities in ministry school and coffee out in California to be closer to his family. And so they promoted from within. I took over the summer after we reopened. And so I've only been in specialty coffee for a year and 2 months now. Yeah. So that's how long I've been in specialty coffee, is only a year and 2 months. Before that, my coffee experience was limited to home and my own personal knowledge, research, and reading. That was pretty much it. So it's been kind of it's always been present in my life, always been present, and then it just kind of accelerated this past year into my job. Yeah.
Could you describe your role at your weekly, daily role at Concord Coffee?
So as the house manager, I'm in charge of making sure the shop stays open, stays stocked, the schedule gets made. Being a manager, at least at Concord, has basically been just learning how to juggle about 47 different things at the same time or more, as any management gig is, because you have to manage not only people, but inventory, the schedule, the shop, make sure it stays clean. And then you throw a pandemic and all these additional cleaning and spacing protocols on top of that. And so my job is to make sure the shop stays open, running, clean, stocked, customers and staff are happy, things like that. The quality of the product is good. So I do a lot of QA, QC. Like I'll just randomly show up and check how the coffee tastes and things like that to make sure that everything's being made right. That's probably the vast majority of it. Obviously, and then I also communicate with my bosses. One of my bosses is one of the owners. And then we now have a regional manager for Concord because this is the second shop. Our shop's back in Lakeland. And so she's now become the regional manager as we slowly open more shops. The pandemic kind of threw a wrench in that. We have a half shop in Jacksonville, kind of. It's not our full-fledged own shop. It's like a small shop inside a church, kind of like the one here, but even smaller. And so we're at like 2.5 shops now. Yeah.
Could you describe Gainesville's Concord coffee before the coronavirus pandemic? Like, what was the environment like? How did people buy their coffee? Where did they sit to enjoy it? What activities did they do?
I would say pre-pandemic, the only difference in the shop now and then is what we serve and where the furniture is. We don't serve all of our food products that we normally do, and the furniture has been reduced and moved around some. Beyond that, I would say it hasn't changed too much since pre-pandemic. It's a very popular place for studying and schoolwork and meetings and things like that. Some people also just come here to chill and hang out, but I would say most people are here to get some work done is the primary activity. I would say that's even accelerated in pandemic times as people meet up in public less and less. And now with courses being all online, most people are here to work. I would say the shop's a lot quieter than it was when it's full. It's still loud because the shop is very open. And so the front of the shop can echo, but it's definitely quieter because everyone's just studying with their headphones on for the most part these days.
How has the pandemic affected business?
Well, compared to our numbers last year, we're at about 70 to 80% of our numbers from the same time last year. And so it's obviously depressed it a little bit, but we're getting back to an okay spot right now. This summer was abysmal. We closed for 2 months when this all first started. When the first closures started happening in mid-March, we followed suit and reopened in mid-May. And so after that, we were probably pulling about 15 to 20% of what we were pulling pre-pandemic. And I don't think it's a fair comparison because summers in Gainesville, a college town, in a coffee shop right next to campus, the summer was already going to be slow. It's just we haven't been open for a non-pandemic summer, so we have nothing to compare it to. But if I had to guess, it probably was slower than it would have been because it was awful this summer, and then late August started to pick back up. So
how has the pandemic affected employee procedures at the shop?
We used to have 2 people on staff. We now can only afford 1 because staffing is our largest expense by a lot. So now we're only down to 1 person. That puts a lot more work on that person to both open and especially to close. Closing is a pain right now. We've had added sanitization procedures both before the shop opens, after it closes, every time a customer leaves the table, and hourly. So it's just between going from 2 to 1 person and having to add all these new cleaning and pandemic procedures, it's changed employee procedures a lot just because working here is kind of demanding right now, especially closing. But I think that's true everywhere because I feel like most people are operating on reduced staffs and reduced this, reduced that, but they're trying to get the business itself back to normal first. And so then it's like, at what point can we put 2 people back on? I don't even know the answer to that question yet, besides, can we reach this hard number value for daily sales first? But I don't think we're going to reach that at least till next year. So it's like everywhere else, we're just operating in this sense of uncertainty and unknown because it just seems like the country's decided we're going to wait till a vaccine or herd immunity comes out, whichever comes out first. And then until then, we'll just live in this like quasi back to normal state. And I guess that's the new normal. So we're working on getting to whatever our ideal spot for that new normal is. I just don't know if we'll have it figured out by the time this is all over, whenever that is. So yeah, it's been an adventure, but we still have business. We still have customers, both new and returning, and if not daily. So I don't think we can complain, besides just we're having a lot of the same problems that everyone else is having, with just the job's more demanding, staff is reduced, business is depressed a little bit. Like I imagine you've probably heard the same story everywhere. So yeah.
How have customers reacted to new safety measures?
Honestly, that's been one of the harder things, just because with a restaurant, the procedures that the state and the county has put in place don't make much sense for restaurants. I'm just going to be honest. Like, the fact that you have to wear a mask to enter a building, but then you can sit in here for 6 hours without one on, doesn't make any sense to me. Like, that's not how virus transmission works. You don't just put it on to walk in the door and then you're clear. Like, so these blanket policies for all restaurants have been weird. And then, like, we're trying to encourage and educate our customers in a friendly manner on why masks are important and things like that. Because some of them get it. It's not like everyone that walks in the doors, but some people I've had to I know that I've had to remind them before to put one on, and they're still walking in the door without one on. It's just like, mask and public health have been made a partisan issue, and I don't know how to, it has made it awkward to talk to people about it, for sure, but that's not like my fault or their fault. It's just the fact that this has been twisted, and I'm trying to do what's best for my shop using the facts, and not everyone's on the same page, and it's just kind of sad. But so Alachua County, you still have to wear a mask to enter, and we have signs on all of our tables that say, "Hey, we're happy to serve you." As a reminder, we still have an ongoing public health crisis. After you're done actively eating and drinking, please put your mask back on. Just like, we're trying to figure out the best language to use with our customers to encourage them and educate them about, like, look, this is important. And if you're going to come in here and sit for 6 hours, I would put a face covering of some kind on, because you don't know where everyone else in the shop has been. And most of us on staff have just had to accept, like, look, you don't know who's walking in through that door. You don't know where they've been. You're not responsible for them. And so that's made staff customer interactions, like, there's just like one more layer of social strangeness to overcome with all of that. But I guess it's all comes down to education. And what was the original question? Because I do tend to deviate.
I mean, I think you hit it, but it was how have customers reacted to the new safety measures?
No, but I guess succinctly, most are fine with it. Some people forget about it and then put it on. I've only had a handful of interactions that are just like, "What do I have to wear a mask?" I'm like, don't ask me that. I'm just doing my job. I mean, I can tell you why, but I don't know if you'll like the answer. So it's just, customer reaction has been overall fine to it, but obviously the strange and negative ones do stick out.
Well, I have one more question that I ask everyone, but if you don't have an answer, that's totally fine. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't discussed so far today?
Okay, that one, let me think for a few seconds on that.
Yeah, no rush at all.
Just pull the email back up again. I would say, just as this semester has gone on and we've all learned how to deal with this together, things have gotten better. Regarding like the things that I mentioned when we first opened back up and people first moved back to town, means some people were from South Florida where it's a huge problem. Some people are from the middle of nowhere where it's not a problem. But over the course, I would say, I guess, like, the weirdness of all the new stuff has gotten less weird, and it is the new normal, but it's still just with so much uncertainty regarding everything, I don't know what coffee shop is going to look like for the next year. I don't know what Concord or any coffee shop in town is going to look like for the next year, because for me, it's been all me and my staff can do to keep the shop open, running, and successful. At times is we lose 2 to 3 to quarantine, and we only have 8 total staff members. So, and if you lose 2 to 3 at the same time, it's just been, the pandemic has very much left its mark on the shop in the sense of the like stress, and suddenly I have 3 shifts in the next 2 days I need to get covered. And if no one can cover them, I, as the manager, have to be there to work them. So it's just, there's a lot to juggle, but somehow we've made it through it all. And somehow we're still making it through it all. Somehow serving coffee to people's is still fun. And our customers are, honestly, the best part has been the customers have been so understanding with when 10 people walk in the door at one time, instead of having 2 people, you only have 1 person back there. They've been very understanding. Like, look, it's going to take you 10, 15 minutes to get your drink if you were the last person in line. So I would say that that's been nice too. Just the understanding that people have had. We have tried to take care of our customers in the past. They're taking care of us too by not being demanding or mean or not understanding about where their drink is. So yeah, I think that's it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
No, thanks for reaching out. It's always good to put for me, I have all these thoughts up here, and this is a nice way to organize it. So yeah.